Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this. You're facing a setback, and everything around you feels like it's falling apart. The dreams you've worked so hard for seem distant, and the weight of failure is heavy on your shoulders. But what if I told you that this moment, this very moment, could be the catalyst for one of the greatest comebacks of your life? What if the setback isn't the end, but the beginning of something powerful? In today's video, we're diving deep into 10 proven strategies that can turn your toughest setbacks into your most triumphant comebacks. These are the same strategies that successful people use to rise from adversity, not just to recover, but to come back stronger, more focused, and more determined than ever. You don't have to stay stuck in the past or let failure define you. This is your chance to shift your mindset, take control, and turn what feels like a setback into the fuel that powers your comeback. Stick with me. What we talk about today could change the trajectory of your life. Life inevitably includes setbacks. No matter how carefully you plan, how disciplined you are, or how much you desire success, there will be obstacles. At times, it will feel like everything you've worked for is falling apart. The certainty you once had may vanish. The people you relied on may disappear, and the paths you were following may suddenly close. In those moments, you face a choice. You can either crumble or rise up stronger. Setbacks are not the end, they are opportunities. They serve as turning points, chances to rebuild with more insight, clarity, and strength. Yet most people don't view them that way. Many allow pain to halt their progress, let failure shape their identity, and confuse rejection with reality. Instead of rising, they freeze, give up, or settle. But that doesn't have to be your story. You can train yourself to respond differently. You can stand amidst the rubble and start rebuilding. You can reframe your loss, extract lessons, and refocus your energy. When you do this, when you choose to respond with strength, you transform into a different kind of person. You become unshakable, not because you are immune to struggle, but because you refuse to remain down. The most resilient people aren't those who never face challenges. They are the ones who always rise after every fall. They don't avoid breakdowns, they push through them, allowing these moments to shape, sharpen, and stretch them. And when they emerge, they're not just back to where they were, they are transformed. They don't return to who they were, they evolve into someone stronger. Every comeback begins with a decision to stop replaying what went wrong and start focusing on what to do next. It's a choice to stop giving power to the problem and begin using that energy to rebuild. It's a decision to stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? Because setbacks don't hinder progress. A lack of response does. The only thing worse than failing is staying stuck in the story of your failure. At some point, you have to stop waiting for permission to move forward. You have to stop needing an apology, an explanation, or the perfect plan. You must choose strength. You must choose movement. You must choose the comeback. This decision is quiet, unassuming, and not made for an audience. It's quiet, internal, and happens in the dark and the silence. At the moment when you've had enough of being defined by defeat, once you make that decision, truly make it, you begin to move differently. You stop carrying shame, stop explaining yourself, stop seeking sympathy. You lock in, rise, and rebuild. Comebacks don't require perfection. They require persistence. They don't need a miracle. They need consistency. The most powerful stories you've ever heard didn't begin with victory. They began with collapse, devastation, and loss. But the hero didn't stop there. They kept going. And because they kept going, the story changed. Your setback doesn't define you. It's just a moment, a chapter, a challenge. It doesn't dictate the ending unless you allow it. You decide what happens next. And when you learn to take pain, loss, and rejection and use them to fuel your growth, nothing can hold you back for long. The first strategy is to face the truth without fear. When setbacks occur, the instinct is to run, to look away, to deny, to minimize, or to numb the pain. But you can't change what you won't confront. Even when it hurts, the truth is always the starting point of a real comeback. Transformation doesn't happen without honesty. A rebound doesn't occur without reality. Clarity doesn't come without confrontation. You must face the situation head on, not with panic, but with presence. Strip the story back to what really happened. What did I do? What did I allow? What pattern repeated? What decision led me here? Not to shame yourself, but to uncover the facts, because clarity is power. Most people get stuck not because the problem is too big, but because their ego is too loud. They'd rather protect their pride than rebuild their life. They want to be right more than they want to be free. But you can't grow through a setback if your identity is tied to the version of you that caused it. You have to be willing to evolve, and that starts with truth. You take a deep breath, sit down and say, this is what happened. No more excuses, no more denial, no more distractions. This is where I am. This is what I lost. This is what I allowed. This is what I avoided. This is what I need to learn. And in that moment of honesty, the shift happens. That's where healing begins. You'll never heal while hiding from the truth. You can't move forward while dragging lies behind you. The truth might sting, but lies rot. They poison your progress and delay your comeback, keeping you stuck in shame when you should be building something new. When you tell the truth, you cut through confusion. You silence the noise, reclaim your power. Stop waiting for someone else to fix it. Stop seeking sympathy and stop asking for a redo. You begin designing your response. You take back the pen, your voice, and your future. This kind of truth isn't about reliving the pain. It's about removing the weight. Because when you tell the truth, you take the emotional charge out of the setback. You see it clearly. You stop dramatizing it. You stop defining yourself by it. You stop being the victim and start being the architect. You stop needing others to agree with your version of the story. When you're honest with yourself, you don't need validation from anyone else. You don't need to argue your point. You don't need to convince others to see it your way. Truth brings peace, and peace allows you to move forward. And here's the power of truth. It's where forgiveness lives. You can't forgive yourself for what you won't admit. You can't forgive others for what you keep bearing. But once you see it clearly, you can say, this happened, I own it, I release it, and I'm done carrying it. From that place, you can begin again. It doesn't mean it didn't matter. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It means it no longer holds your power. You've acknowledged it, faced it, and now you're using the lessons, the pain, and the insights to rebuild stronger, clearer, and better. There's nothing more courageous than telling yourself the truth, because it means you're done pretending, done performing, and done defending what broke you. Now you're ready for the real breakthrough, because true healing only happens in truth. Real freedom begins the moment you say, this is where I am, and I'm ready to rise. The second strategy is to separate failure from your identity. The setback is something you experienced, but it is not who you are. You lost a job, but that doesn't mean you lost your value. You made a mistake, but that doesn't make you a mistake. You fell short, but that doesn't mean you're broken. The setback happened to you, but it doesn't define you unless you let it. Most people don't come back, not because they're incapable, but because they internalize the fall and personalize the failure. They wrap their identity around the pain and start believing this is who I am now. But you are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you decide to do next. And that decision starts when you stop labeling yourself based on one season. Failure is an event, not a personality trait or a permanent title. It's an experience, and a valuable one if you allow it to teach you instead of bury you. Every person you admire has failed more than they've succeeded. The difference is they didn't stop at failure. They didn't let one moment define their identity. You can't heal if you're still calling yourself names. You can't grow if you're holding on to shame. You can't create a comeback if you're dragging the belief that you're not worthy of one. At some point, you have to separate what happened from who you are. You have to stop saying, I'm not good enough, and start saying, that didn't work, but I will. This is the moment where self-compassion meets strength, where you stop punishing yourself and start supporting yourself. You speak to yourself with honesty, yes, but also with respect. You say, I didn't get it right, but I'm learning, I'm growing, and I'm not staying here. That voice, that energy marks the beginning of transformation, because identity drives behavior. If you see yourself as stuck, if you see yourself as a failure, you'll repeat failure. But if you shift your identity, even before results change, your actions will follow. You'll move like someone who's rebuilding, like someone who's rising, showing up like someone who still believes in their potential. One of the most important questions you can ask after a setback is, who do I believe I am right now? Not what did I do or what did I lose, but who am I choosing to become in this moment? Your comeback won't be powered by your resume. It will be powered by your identity, by the story you decide to tell yourself when everything feels uncertain. This doesn't mean ignoring what happened. It means not allowing it to control you. You extract the lesson without absorbing the lie. You rebuild your confidence from the inside out, not by pretending, but by choosing. Choosing to define yourself by your potential, not your past. And it's not a one-time choice. It's a daily decision. You will feel the pull to shrink. You will feel the weight of doubt. You will hear the old stories rise up. But every time you remind yourself, I am not what I went through. I am not what I lost. I am not the worst thing that happened to me. You take your power back. You anchor your identity in truth. You become someone who rises, not because you have to, but because that's who you are. That's what you do. You've stopped tying your worth to a result. You've started tying your worth to your resilience, your character, and your commitment to grow. That identity, anchored in strength rather than shame, will carry you through. The third strategy is to reconnect with your reason. When life gets tough, when plans fall apart, when loss knocks the wind out of you, and when everything you trusted crumbles, it's easy to lose sight of your why. You can disconnect from your mission, forget what you were fighting for, and without a compelling reason to rise, staying down can seem like the easier choice. What you need is not more motivation, but meaning. You need a reason that's deeper than the resistance, bigger than the pain, and louder than the fear. Setbacks bring doubt, shame, and confusion, and unless your reason is louder than those voices, you'll start to believe them. Your comeback begins the moment your purpose becomes non-negotiable. When you say, I don't care how heavy this feels, I'm not done. When you commit to the idea that this season won't define you because what you're building matters too much to quit, that's when the energy returns. That's when the spark reignites, not from external inspiration, but from internal alignment. Most people stay stuck, not because they can't move, but because they've lost sight of why it matters. They're disconnected from their deeper reason, the thing they're building, the legacy they're protecting, the person they're becoming. When the vision fades, the fight does too. That's why your reason needs to be personal and emotional. It can't be vague or borrowed. It has to be yours. You need a reason that grabs your heart, one that brings tears to your eyes when you think about quitting, a reason that makes comfort seem like a threat and mediocrity feel like betrayal. Maybe it's for your kids, your name, your future self, or the life you promised to build. Whatever it is, write it down, revisit it often, speak it out loud, make it a permanent fixture in your mind, because your reason will hold you up when everything else falls apart. When you're in the midst of a storm, logic won't save you. Numbers won't save you. You need emotion. You need fire. You need something that reminds you why you started and convinces you not to stop. Stay connected to that reason. Reconnect by remembering who you were before the pain. Remember the promises you made to yourself. Remember the vision you had when you still believed. And then ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be on the other side of this? Because your comeback isn't just about recovery. It's about transformation. When your reason is clear, you stop bargaining with discipline. You stop negotiating with growth. You stop needing comfort to move forward. You move because it matters, because it's personal, because you understand what's on the line. Your reason brings focus. It keeps you from chasing distractions. It keeps you locked in when everything around you tries to pull you away. It gives you something to aim at when life buries you under noise. It won't always feel strong, and that's normal. But when it fades, revisit it. Remind yourself, write it again, speak it again. Refuse to let temporary discouragement erase your long-term direction. When you have a reason, you don't need perfect circumstances. You just need to remember who you are and what you're building. You need to keep moving imperfectly, inconsistently, and sometimes painfully, but still moving because your why is stronger than the setback. The fourth strategy is to shift your language, because the words you use to describe your situation shape your relationship with it. Every time you describe your life, you reinforce it. When you tell the story of your setback, you either empower your future or reignite your pain. Words are more than commentary. They are construction. They either build your comeback or keep you stuck in the cycle of breakdown. Most people don't realize how much damage their language does. They say things like, "I'm just stuck," or "nothing ever works out for me," or "this always happens." Every time those words leave their mouth, their identity locks around the setback even tighter. What you speak becomes what you believe, and what you believe shapes your expectations, which in turn shapes your reality. If you want to recover, you need to speak from a different place, not from fear or frustration, but from truth, vision, and the person you are becoming, not the person who got knocked down. You don't deny the pain, but you don't give it the microphone. You don't keep rehearsing the same story if it keeps you small. Start noticing your language, not just around others, but especially when you're alone. How do you talk to yourself after a fall? The words you choose when describing your challenges, are they words of defeat or direction? Are you speaking like a victim or strength? Are you speaking like a victim or someone who's already begun to rise? Language has energy. It either drags you back or pulls you forward. So when you fall, don't say, "I'm a failure." Say, "That didn't work and now I'm adjusting." Don't say, "I don't know what to do." Say, "I'm learning what to do." Don't say, "This broke me." Say, "This stretched me and I'm coming back stronger." This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about leading yourself. It's about telling the truth in a way that builds momentum instead of shame. Shame keeps you circling. Language rooted in growth moves you. It nudges you forward, giving your nervous system something new to believe. You'll feel the difference immediately. The moment you change how you speak about what happened, your body responds differently. Your energy shifts and you move with more intention. You breathe a little deeper because you're no longer reinforcing the narrative that you're helpless. You're rewriting it. When you get consistent with this, when you stop speaking defeat over your dreams and start speaking life into your potential, your mind will begin to seek solutions instead of threats. Your eyes will start to see possibilities instead of problems. People often underestimate the power of their daily words. They think breakthroughs come from one big external event, but most breakthroughs are the result of small, daily internal decisions to stop rehearsing defeat and start declaring direction. You can't always change what happened, but you can always change how you talk about it. That shift, though simple, is strategic. It will begin to rewrite the way you see yourself, how you approach problems, and how you hold your energy in the face of adversity. You've already survived what tried to break you. Now you need to stop repeating it like it still defines you. Stop describing your life like nothing can change. Stop telling stories that keep you in the past. Start speaking like someone who is healing, someone who is rebuilding, someone who knows they're not done yet. The fifth strategy is to rebuild momentum with small, decisive wins. When you're recovering from a setback, the biggest lie is that you have to do something big right away, that you need to fix everything overnight or come back with a dramatic transformation. But comebacks don't start with breakthroughs. They start with basics, small steps, clear actions, and tiny wins that remind your mind, "I'm moving again." After a fall, your confidence takes a hit, your belief begins to fracture, and your identity feels shaken. If you try to leap too far, too quickly, you risk overwhelming yourself. You might freeze, talk yourself out of it, or simply feel paralyzed because your nervous system can't handle that jump all at once. It needs evidence, movement, and the rhythm of small victories stacked over time. So start small. Pick something you can control today, something you've been avoiding, something that represents progress, not perfection. It might be making one phone call, writing one paragraph, taking a walk, cleaning one drawer, or finishing a task you left undone. It doesn't need to be impressive, but it must be intentional. Every time you follow through on a small win, you rebuild trust with yourself. You prove to your mind that you're no longer stuck. You remind your body what forward movement feels like, reinforcing the identity of someone who moves, who acts, who doesn't let resistance dictate the day. Momentum isn't magic. It's consistency. Once you take one step, the next becomes easier. Once you complete one task, your focus sharpens. Once you move, inertia works in your favor rather than against you. But you don't wait for it to happen. You build it. People stay stuck not because they don't care, but because they overthink the comeback. They make it too complicated, too distant. So they delay. They think, when I'm ready, I'll start. But readiness is a byproduct of action, not a prerequisite. You don't wait to feel ready. You move until you are. When you move consistently and stack small wins, the shift starts to happen. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, think differently, because momentum changes your perspective. What felt impossible last week feels manageable today. Your comeback becomes real, not just theoretical. Stacking small wins rewires your brain. Your mind learns through repetition, through follow-through. So every time you finish what you start, your brain makes a note, I can trust myself. And that trust becomes the foundation of resilience. Right now, you don't need to prove anything to anyone else. You just need to prove it to yourself that you're not defined by the setback, that you're not frozen in time, and that you're capable of moving forward, even if it's at a slow pace. Don't confuse small with insignificant. One small decision can change the direction of an entire season. One tiny act of courage can unlock a flood of clarity. Never underestimate what can happen when you just begin. The sixth strategy is to protect your energy as if your future depends on it, because it does. After a setback, your energy is vulnerable. You're sensitive to noise, drained by overthinking, and tempted to respond to everything. But if you don't learn to guard your energy during the rebuild, you'll stay stuck longer than necessary. You'll spend the energy you need for your comeback managing opinions, regrets, and internal chaos. You only have so much energy each day, and it must be invested, not scattered. Your energy should be directed toward healing, building, and gaining clarity, not toward explaining yourself to people who won't understand, reliving what went wrong, or replaying conversations that have already ended. The fastest way to stay stuck is to give your attention to things that won't move you forward. It could be a conversation that doesn't need to happen, or dwelling on what you can't change. You stop waiting for a breakthrough and start creating it, one discipline step at a time. When you're rebuilding, every ounce of energy must be focused forward. This means setting boundaries, not out of bitterness, but out of self-care and stewardship. You no longer allow everything into your space. You don't respond to every message, entertain every opinion, or carry every expectation. You're rebuilding, and that requires discipline. You must protect your inner environment. The words you speak to yourself, the thoughts you entertain, the tone you use when talking about your life. Energy is not just physical. It's mental, emotional, and spiritual. If you feel drained constantly, it's not always because you're working too hard. It might be because you're overthinking things that don't matter. To protect your energy, you must become selective. You stop living on autopilot. You choose what enters your mind, what leaves your mouth, what conversations you allow, what media you consume, and what stories you believe. Each time you make a decision that honors your future, you make your energy stronger. Here's the truth. Some people won't like your new boundaries. They were used to you being always available, always apologizing, always carrying the emotional weight of those around you. But when you start protecting your energy, some people will fall away. That's okay. Let them. Your future requires a new version of you, and not everyone will have a seat at that table. You don't owe anyone access to your peace or your burnout. You don't need to explain why you're not answering every text or attending every event. Your comeback is sacred, your rebuild is personal, and anyone who truly cares for you will honor that process. You also have to protect your physical energy. Your body is the vessel that carries your comeback. If you're exhausted, undernourished, sleep-deprived, or overstimulated, you won't have the capacity to move forward with strength. Take care of yourself. Rest, eat well, breathe deeply, and move your body. These are not luxuries, they are necessities. This is not the season to run yourself into the ground. It's the season to move with precision, to stay focused, and to cut the noise so you can hear your intuition again. Preserve your energy so you can pour it into the rebuild. As you protect your energy, your confidence will return, your mind will clear, and your direction will sharpen. You're no longer surviving off scraps or being depleted by everything around you. You're filled, stable, and ready to build something lasting. The seventh strategy is to recommit to discipline, even when motivation fades, especially when it fades. Your comeback doesn't wait for your emotions to cooperate. It doesn't care if you feel inspired. It just requires that you keep going with focus, integrity, and action, no matter what you feel. Setbacks have a way of draining motivation. They make everything feel heavier, slower, and less certain. And that's when the temptation arises to let go of habits, to stop showing up, to let discipline slip. But discipline is the point. Discipline is how you hold the line while you rebuild. It's how you prove that the version of you who rises is stronger than the version who fell. Most people wait until they feel ready to take action again. But feelings follow focus, and focus follows action. You don't sit around hoping to feel better. You move, you train, you execute. You make one decision, then the next. That's how discipline becomes part of your identity. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when it's inconvenient. It's putting your comeback on the calendar. It's getting up when it's easier to stay down. It's making the call, doing the rep, writing the plan, showing up for yourself even when no one's watching. And when you show up consistently enough, day after day, your comeback will no longer be a distant hope. It will be real. When you start using pain as a path, you stop seeing it as a prison that traps you. Instead, you begin to understand that the setback is part of your growth process, not your destruction. Pain is inevitable. It knocks the air out of your chest, leaves you confused, grieving, and questioning everything you thought would last. But it's not here to break you, it's here to shape you. The question isn't, why is this happening to me, but what is this pain teaching me? Pain is a teacher. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't sugarcoat. It simply reveals the truth. It shows you where you've ignored your instincts, where you've betrayed your boundaries, and where you've stayed in situations that no longer serve you. It tells you the truth about where you've been settling. When you resist pain, you allow it to fester and hide, replaying itself in different forms until you confront it. You can't heal what you won't feel. Avoiding pain only stores it, keeps it in the background, and brings it back in ways you don't expect. But when you step into pain with courage, when you ask, what is this here to teach me? You open yourself up to transformation. Pain becomes not a punishment, but a necessary part of your growth. This is where you begin to shift your mindset. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Ask, what is this building in me? Every painful experience becomes an opportunity for deeper learning and evolution. Pain is not the end. It's the beginning of something new, something stronger. Facing pain head on, not dramatizing it or drowning in it, reveals hidden strength. It helps you access wisdom you never knew you had, and that wisdom becomes the foundation for your comeback. You stop seeing setbacks as a sign of defeat and start seeing them as part of your preparation, your redirection, your divine alignment. Sometimes a door closes not to destroy you, but to protect you from something that would have held you back. Using pain as a path lets you rise stronger, more aware, and more prepared for what's next. It's not about escaping the hurt, but embracing the transformation it brings. This shift in perspective gives you power over the pain, making it a stepping stone toward your comeback rather than a wall that stops you. You stop reliving the moment of your setback, and instead, you lean into the version of yourself that's emerging from it, the version that's stronger, wiser, and more grounded because of what you've endured. Pain doesn't mean failure. It means you dared to care, you risked, you believed, and now it's time to be brave enough to rebuild. But rebuilding doesn't mean rushing through the pain. It means sitting with it long enough to understand its lesson, to let the emotions soften, and to allow the fog to lift. It means trusting that even in the midst of this hardship, something meaningful is being born within you. Sometimes your most powerful clarity comes from your deepest confusion. Your greatest growth comes from your greatest loss, and your most beautiful beginnings often arise in the middle of your most painful endings. So instead of letting pain stop you, let it teach you. Let it soften you without making you fragile, strengthen you without hardening your heart. Pain should shape you into someone who can approach the next season of life with more wisdom, more resilience, and more gratitude than ever before. The ninth strategy is to get crystal clear on who you're becoming. After a setback, the worst thing you can do is try to return to who you were. The version of you that experienced the setback didn't survive it. You did. That version didn't carry the knowledge, wisdom, or strength that you now possess. Your goal is not to go back, but to evolve forward. You must become someone deeper, stronger, and wiser. Someone who's learned from the challenges and pain and is now ready to move forward with purpose. You can't create a powerful comeback if your focus is on rewinding to the past. You need vision, not just to fix what broke, but to reimagine who you're becoming. People who don't have vision tend to repeat the same mistakes, fall back into old patterns, and remain in environments that contributed to their setback. So ask yourself not just how you bounce back, but who are you becoming because of this experience? What habits need to die? What beliefs need to shift? What boundaries need to be built? What clarity have you gained that should now guide your decisions? When you get clear on who you're becoming, decisions become easier. You stop negotiating with your past self, and you stop letting others define you based on who you were. You begin to protect your space, and you start saying no more often, not out of arrogance, but out of focus. You know exactly who you're becoming, and anything that doesn't align with that vision has no place in your life. This is your chance to reset, not just your habits or your schedule, but your identity. You have the power to rewrite the narrative. You no longer need to carry the mistakes of your past as permanent labels. Healing doesn't come from dragging old stories into your new chapter. It comes from writing a new one, speaking and acting like the person you're becoming, even before you fully feel like them. This new version of you moves with clarity. They don't wait for applause or permission. They know what matters, and they've been through fire, carrying the lessons with them. They don't waste time or apologize for their growth. They show up with intention, and they protect what they're building. You build this new version of yourself by making aligned decisions, not emotional or dramatic ones. Quiet, grounded, repeated actions that reinforce your new identity. You make a plan, create structure, and build rhythm, saying, this is who I am now. This is how you transform from surviving to thriving. You are defined by your rise. Every setback, every challenge, every painful moment doesn't define you unless you let it. What defines you is how you choose to move forward, how you choose to transform the pain into power, the struggle into strength. And you don't need to do this alone. You have everything within you already to reclaim your narrative and shape your story. The comeback begins the moment you decide to step out of the ashes and walk forward with purpose. It's not about making grand gestures or shouting from the rooftops. It's about quietly and consistently making choices that align with your new identity, with the person you are becoming. The comeback is in the small, everyday acts of resilience. It's in the decision to get up when you'd rather stay down. It's in the discipline to keep moving forward, even when it feels like no one is watching, even when the breakthrough feels far away. The comeback is in the way you write the next chapter, not in the struggle of the previous one. The future doesn't care about the pain you've endured. It cares about who you're becoming in the aftermath. It's about how you close that chapter. It's about whether you let the story of your setbacks hold you hostage or whether you